My name is Sonia Oxhorn, and I work for the Brooklyn Public Library, and I am also a trustee at large on the NYCMER board. And I was formerly the NYCMER vice president from 2021 to 2023, and before that served on the NYCMER conference committee. And I've also presented at the NYCMER conference, so I'm well versed in all things NYCMER.
And my name is Brian Levine. I am currently unemployed, so hoping for a new job soon. I have a master's from Oregon State in science education in a free choice learning environment, which is to say museums and other informal spaces. I was the VP of NYCMER from 2019 to 2021 and ran the 2020 and 21 conferences. And notably, the 2020 conference had to shift very quickly to being online. And that was fun. I was also on the conference committee the three previous years, and have presented at it several times, and been to many other conferences as well in the science education and museum world.
So just to give you a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today, we'll talk specifically about the NYCMER conference, but also conferences kind of at large. So we'll start off with some specifics, this year's conference theme, what the call for proposals will look like, and then talk about why present, and that can be why present at NYCMER, but why present at any conference, how to select a topic, the different kinds of formats that at least NYCMER has, and many conferences are fairly similar. We'll talk about the application process, what the conference committee is kind of looking for when they're going through the selection process, and then what to expect once you're selected, and then if you're attending the conference either as a presenter or just an attendee. And then we'll have some time at the end for questions, and also to share out ideas if you want feedback from us, from the group, if you're looking to work with someone else. Maybe this is a time to connect with some of your peers and find a conference connection.
I'll be monitoring the chat, so if you have any questions that are urgent, I'll interrupt. Otherwise, yeah, we have a couple of spaces for some discussion.
So we'll start off by talking about the conference theme for this year. So the conference theme is Why Museums, Reflection and Revitalization in the Field of Museum Education. That's quite a mouthful, but we'll get into it. So on the request for proposals, you'll see some similar text to this. Explore the ways in which museums serve as the cornerstones of education and community. Share your inspiration for museum education work and make sense of our rapidly changing pandemic-altered museum landscape. We will reflect on our current responsibilities as museum educators and explore how we can revitalize existing methodologies and programming in the post-pandemic museum landscape together. So this is a big way to say, why do we do the work we do? Why do we continue to do the work we do? What do we want to see going into the future? What has changed in recent years, and how are we reflecting back on that? And so, this idea can be pretty broad, and when you're coming up with your proposal, you definitely want it to reflect back on this theme of why museums. But also there's so many different ways to kind of get into this. So in the conference committee, when we were talking, we were sort of thinking about all of the different things that have been happening the last couple of years. And just like there's been a ton going on, and we're always moving and we're always changing, and having a moment of that kind of like reflection and thinking through, like, are we still doing what we want to do? Yes or no? And where do we want to see the field going into the future? So that brings me kind of to the call for proposals. What you'll see is an outlining of the theme, and then sort of what you will need in order to apply, and rules that we have, some regulations we have, so all of those things, and this QR code. And again, we'll send all of this out, so you don't need to worry about, catching it right now. But all of this can be found at this link. or with this QR code. And so you'll see both a form to fill out, but also a template, so that you can see all of the questions ahead of time and sort of set yourself up so that once you go to fill out the Google form, you have all of your information already. So again, this year's theme, why museums? Your topic should explicitly be tied to the theme. So when you're writing out your proposal, you want to really make sure that you're always going back to this idea, and making it really clear for the conference committee why this relates to the theme, because we're reading through a lot of proposals. And so it's nice when it's really just right in your face and you don't have to kind of ponder through it. So just try and make your proposal as clear as possible. And then the other thing is it should be interesting to you. I always say if I'm reading something that someone was excited about writing, I feel more excited about it. So if you're excited about your topic, if you're interested in your topic, likely you will find someone in the conference committee who feels the same way. So that's my first piece of advice, I would say.
All right. So the question is, of course, why should you present? You certainly going to conferences maybe is a way to meet a lot of people and do some networking and learn some new things in the field. But what we're also trying to do here is convince you that presenting is worth your time. So why should you present? And let's go to the next slide. We have some, right, the basic idea is because others want to hear from you. Your colleagues want to know about your expertise and your experience. That's why they're coming to the conference. And so we need people to share that, what they have done and what they have learned. And yeah, and so they really do want to hear from you. Each year that we run this, the rooms are packed with people from our profession, our colleagues, from museums and other informal spaces around the area, and sometimes even further apart or further abroad. Let's keep going. All right, so some of the benefits, just mainly these are to yourself. It's a way to build up your own resume and your own brand. It, of course, looks good to your superiors that you are out there and teaching others about your work, not just running your programs in kind of a bubble in your own institution or wherever you are. It helps others learn from your successes and those things that may have been less than successful. I didn't want to say full-on failures here, but you know, it may be that you did not have something work exactly as planned and that you have something to teach us. It's a way, as I mentioned earlier, to make new contacts and new connections. I bolded this next one can lead to further opportunities. I once gave a presentation that led to an article in a publication, and someone contacted me afterwards and asked me if I wanted to write about it, and that was a nice little thing. You may want to be promoting an idea or a method or resources and sometimes a product. But there's an asterisk there because if you go to if you hit next, there's a little pop-up. And that is that at the NYCMER conference, we are all for you promoting stuff, but not paid stuff. It is not a chance to sell things. Other conferences, this is an option. And you may actually on the application have to kind of check off that this is promotional rather than informational. But in NYCMER, we are not asking you to promote anything. We want you to you can endorse things, certain ways to do things, but please do not think of this as an opportunity to sell your book, for instance. And a NYCMER specific benefit to presenting is that you get a free conference ticket. Not every conference does that, but at NYCMER, we really want to encourage people to present, and that is one of the ways that we have done it. So you can save, you know, it's nearly $100, I think, from your budget. Okay, let's keep going. So selecting a topic, Sonia and I agreed, I think that is kind of the biggest first step. What should you be thinking about as your presentation? So we came up with some kind of big prompts and small prompts and some examples from last year's NYCMER conference of some of these big and small prompts. So big, we mean outside of your own work into kind of the larger field. Why are museums and other informal spaces important? What are the big issues in their field that you have experience in or that you've learned about in your program or by reading papers? So you could build in research that has influenced your studies and your work, or methods that others have developed that you've taken into your own work. Maybe how collaborations. So have you collaborated with community groups or other institutions, or specific experts that have helped provide your programming? What are we up to? Oh, tools, kind of similar to the methods. What tools that you have found that have really kind of helped your work, and changes that you might want to make or see in the larger kind of context of informal education, and similar to that, where you think the field is going. So in 2023, some of the big picture things, sessions that we picked out are listed here. I'm not going to read through each of them, and I did not go to all of those, so I can't really talk about them. But these are some of the sessions that we thought were nice examples of that type of thinking big. Okay, so then we can turn it back to small. So thinking much more individually about your own work, your own institution, why it's important to the community, and how it's impacted by your current situation, or the situation at the museum, or the location that you're at, or is construction a problem? Are there changes? Are halls closing? A little nod to AM&H right now and some other places. How your audience has been impacted by your programming, and maybe how they've impacted how you're planning your follow-up programs. Changes to that institution that have impacted it, kind of similar to how your general institutional impacts. Anyway, or you could just talk about what you've done that's worked well, inspiration you've taken from others, and maybe tools that either you've developed or really modified so that they fit your programming. So they may be hyper specific, but someone still might be find that useful in their work as well. And some of the examples out of 2023 that we listed are on the next slide. The NYCMER conference, there we go. I meant to italicize those, but anyway, those are all titles of sessions as well. And yeah, so you can think big, you can think small. Actually, I think Roberto is in the audience, and he gave one of these sessions even. Or you can think somewhere in the middle. So, these are only suggestions. These are not anywhere near, like, all of the options available. All right, continuing on. I wanted to pause for a moment and reflect on some of our favorite sessions. And oh yeah, and I've been thinking about one in particular that I went to. It wasn't at NYCMER, but it was at the Association of Science and Technology Centers, or ASTEC. And one session that I went to many years ago was on the use of kind of comedy and humor. And you go to a lot of these sessions, and a lot of them have impacted my work and things, but that one was something I had never really stopped to think about. It's something that I intentionally added into my own programs and into the classes that I taught. But to know that there were people thinking about this on a larger scale, there had actually even been research on it. It was something that was both surprising and illuminating, and it made me feel very validated for having used humor and having used comedy as a tool. And in fact, it turned out that it helps people remember things. So I think that was one of my favorite sessions I've ever attended. Sonia, were you able to think of
Yeah,
one as well?
I did. Yeah, not to keep calling Roberto out, but I'm going to do it again. I believe it was 2 years ago, Roberto and Adeline did a really lovely discussion on how to navigate illness in the workplace, which is something that I think we don't talk about enough in terms of just labor practices in general. But then, it's also something that will eventually affect all of us, big or small, in one way or another. And so I think it's a really important conversation to start. And I thought they just approached it really like generously and graciously. And I, from feedback that I then saw, I know it was really important to a lot of people. So I really appreciated having that session. And again, it was something that is so universal, but I would have never thought to myself to have a session like that. So it's kind of those ones that are great to see at the conference because they're so important to have for all of us. So I will stop calling Roberto out for the rest of the day, I promise.
Not really intentional, Roberto. So sorry about but thank you for your continued participation. So some session ideas. This is kind of an official NYCMER Padlet, and I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. It's some suggested ideas from the conference committee about things that they, I believe, discussed. Actually, I should turn this over to you, Sonia, a little bit more.
Sure, yeah. So this is in our brainstorming for what could be a potential theme this year. We just sort of threw out all the ideas that we could possibly have. And this is sort of a cleaned up version of that. So some of the ideas were maybe too small for a whole conference theme, but we still thought were important for the field, or that helped us, take the next steps to getting to the theme we eventually got to. And so we thought we would share them out and see what other people did with these. So feel free to take them and run, or collaborate with others, or combine them, or just use it as a jumping board to see if there's something that resonates with you. And again, I'll keep reminding everyone, we're going to send these out, so don't feel like you have to look through everything right now. You'll have this link and you can keep referring back to it.
And we should have some time at the end also. We should run a little short, at least when we practiced we did. So at the end, we thought maybe we could kind of save some time for people to take a look at this and together and discuss, and maybe make some connections, and maybe we'll get a couple of sessions out of this. Also, if you are really stuck for an idea, can we go back one? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
If you're really stuck, Emily Edmonds, Langham is our current vice president. She was unable to join us tonight, but you can email her directly, and she could maybe suggest some things, or pass it on to the board and suggest what connections, and some of us could suggest some connections that you might be able to make for collaborators on an idea as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
between the conference committee and the NYCMER board, we cover a lot of institutions, we know a lot of people, so please use us as a resource.
Yep. So formats, these are the specific formats for the NYCMER conference. They're fairly typical that you'll see at most normal conferences as well. So we're going to start first with the types of sessions known as breakouts. And we'll talk more about the kind of how the conference runs, but there are usually 3 breakout sessions during the day, and with several sessions to choose from. And you may, so even if you're just attending, you'll see that there are these different types as well. But if you are applying, you'll have to choose one. And a workshop is a pretty, I'm sure you're all familiar with some kind of workshop that you've been to. It's essentially like doing an activity together and maybe modeling or demonstrating something from your work. Could be showing some best practices in how to do collage work, which looks like what is happening on the right there, or workshopping ideas for new programming based on your interests, or any number of other types of things. This is generally led by 1 or 2 presenters, where the audience is then tasked with a lot of the work, but then and kind of doing individual or small group work depending on how you have it done. There's expertise at the front in, like, we've done this before, so we'll help you through this type of project. Next is our breakout session, and a very typical one, a panel discussion, where you have usually 3 or 4 perhaps people up front. Perhaps one of them is also moderating the discussion, as the person who is proposing the idea to us. You don't have to also be the moderator. You could choose a separate moderator and be one of the panelists yourself. You could moderate the panel and be a panelist as well. That has certainly happened. So, options there. And the idea is to really dissect an idea with several viewpoints. Not a lot of audience discussion in the first, usually maybe 2/3 of it. You're really kind of talking about the experience of each person and their take on whatever your topic is. And then you leave time for Q&A so that members of the audience can kind of ping each person or individuals about maybe specific questions that they have. Next up is our facilitated dialogue type. And in this, this is usually one, maybe two people up at the front, and you're presenting an idea. And maybe there's a short presentation about it, but you are really trying to get everyone in the room to then discuss in small, sometimes called roundtables as well. You're discussing an idea, and then with the idea that everyone is going to provide feedback at the end. So there's kind of a major section of this where the group is given some prompts. Maybe there's an interruption and you're prompting it from the front. Maybe it's a worksheet where you're all kind of working on it together. But the idea is to generate new ideas, to generate discussion, and then share that back with the whole room and see what kind of points of agreement or possibly contention exist in that group setting as well. And then lastly, we have an experimental option, which is kind of something else. So if you have a different type of idea, maybe it's a hybrid of some sort of thing. In this one that the pictures are showing, this is from a conference a few years ago where the session, I think, actually created these not during an actual session, but they still proposed this idea and were able to kind of um, uh, actually Rosemary, I think, is in the room and wants to do things very much like this, where it's kind of group creation. So you create things where they then impact the rest of the conference. So these statements were made. I don't remember what the prompt was at this point. Guerrilla haikus. Thank you, Roberto. Yes. And then they were presented by literally putting them up around the conference and kind of taking them with us as we changed venues. I think we moved during the day that year between a theater space and then the other space. Yeah, so experimental can really kind of take any format. You still would have that hour. I should have mentioned that all these breakouts have an hour long space in a room with a projector and seats and tables and things. But experimental could actually blend with the next thing as well, which are the poster sessions. So that's kind of a separate application. You can either apply for a breakout or a poster. And I put poster in quotes because you can do a traditional poster like the trifold boards, or you could print out a large thing on a poster printer and bring that. Or you could kind of run an activity, or you could show off something like how one we had a couple of years ago involved costumes. I think there's actually a picture of that.
Yeah, right
And it
on.
was costumed interpreters who were kind of showing off what they were using and how their method was. But the point is to have your own little space and have tiny conversations, kind of micro interactions, where you're talking for say 2 to 5 minutes with one, maybe a small group of people. It's one or two people presenting. You could show off your research, you could show off techniques, but it's not meant to be an hour-long discussion. It's meant to really be short interactions and maybe showing off something interesting that you've done, or as was mentioned a minute ago, creating something. It could be that you want to like have a little interaction where people are kind of doing something fun and you want to add to the conference in that way as well.
Yeah,
Should still be related to your work. Sorry, go ahead,
we had a
Sonia.
great like paper craft station during the poster session last year. So you can really think outside of the box in terms of like what a poster might be. And more as like it's like a drop-in session or
Yeah.
something smaller.
Yeah. All right. And on to Sonia for the next part.
So now we'll talk about what the actual application process is. So we've thought about our theme, we've thought about the different kinds of formats you can choose. And then the kind of third piece that you need before you start to like write anything down is you need to know about your collaborators. So do you want to work by yourself? Do you want to find a partner or a few people? You can look inside your institution, work with your colleagues, but also feel free to branch out and reach out to other institutions. Either it can be interesting to find institutions that are doing similar work to yours, or find something that's like the complete opposite of what you do and see where you meet and where you don't. So once you have those kind of three things, and the order that you figure those out in does not necessarily have to reflect what it is on the screen. But once you have your topic, your collaborators, and your format chosen, you're going to want to start writing together if you're working with others. And you want to keep thinking about how it connects back to the theme in your writing. And so, like I mentioned earlier, we're looking through lots of proposals. And so it's really nice to have something that's just like very cleanly laid out. You make your connection to the theme very obvious. You don't like try and hide things in there. You just want it to be as sort of straightforward and clear about like, this is what, like in my head, I can imagine what this is going to be. And then you will possibly need to get institutional support depending on what it is you're doing. Likely if you're talking about, a specific program that your institution runs, it's a good idea to get kind of the okay from a manager or a director or something. Just if you're talking about an institution, it's good to
if you're going to be
okay.
If you are going to represent the voice of the institution, you're not being critical of it, for instance, then you should have someone signing off on that.
But you can also represent just yourself. Even if you work at an institution, your conference does not need to necessarily be about your everyday work. It can be about your interests as well. And then just keep in mind that these are due on February 12th, so it's about 2 weeks away. So you want to get started, but you also still have plenty of time. I would say once you have the topic, the collaborators, and the format chosen, everything else will sort of begin to write itself. Those are really the important three pieces. And hopefully you're getting some ideas today as we're talking. So this link will lead you to the template page. And so you're going to want to make a copy of it and share it to your own Google Drive so that you can type into it directly, share it with your collaborators. And this document contains all of the questions that will be asked on the proposal. So you'll be ready to then just copy and paste once you get to the Google form. So this is a really useful tool. So you can kind of save it and work on it over a few days. I would definitely recommend doing that so that you have time to proofread everything before it goes into the Google, form. There we go. And so, yeah, this I'm going to go through kind of quickly, but again, we'll send all of this out. So you'll have these links available to you. So you don't need to hunt them down again. So some tips when you're doing your writing is to think about, why is this session important? And if it's important to you, it's important to someone else, and just figure out how to put that into words. It's a great idea to ground it into some kind of research or best practices. So if you kind of are like, I have this idea, let me go out and see if other people have had similar ideas. And if there's anything to kind of back up what I'm saying, that's always a good idea. It'll help you feel more confident when you're going into the conference also, just to know that you're like not alone in these ideas. Sometimes you might not be able to. Maybe you really are the first person to ever do something. Go for it, talk about it. But it's always good to, not go into something thinking that and then being proven wrong either. So it's good to kind of look around and see what else is happening in the realm that you're studying. Again, proofread, make sure you have someone else proofread it. Look for clarity, look for obviously like spelling and things like that. You want it to be neat, you want it to look professional. Think about who you are presenting with. We want presenter diversity at our conference. And I mean that in terms of, we want people who are at all different levels in their career. So maybe you're just getting started, maybe you're still in school, maybe you've worked in the field for 30, 50 years. We want to hear from everyone. We want to hear from people who work with adults, people who work with children, people who work with people who have been incarcerated. We want to hear from people who work, with community members, people who are taking the museum outside of the walls. We want to hear from like every different kind of interaction that our institutions have. We also want to hear from all different kinds of institutions. So we are the, New York City Museum Educator Roundtable, but we also represent aquariums and zoos and parks and historic sites and libraries. So anywhere someone is doing learning, you're welcome. We want to hear. That can be, and people learn everywhere.
Traditional classrooms as well. Sometimes
Yeah.
we've had classroom teachers join a session because they were part of the program that is being discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anytime we're learning, we want to know more about that. And then think about your session goals and how they kind of can connect back to the theme. That's a good place to make that connection. But it's really good for you to have in mind what will the audience come away with and then reflect that back into your proposal. In your writing, start to think about like if there'll be physical takeaways. Are they writing something? Are they crafting something? Do I need handouts? And then also, again, make sure you're not kind of promoting a specific product as long as, you're not promoting something that someone has to pay for. And then always connect back to the theme. All right, so then you'll get to the application. Hopefully you have everything already written out. You'll go to that Google form, which is linked here, and you will type in everything you've already written out, plus, everyone's names, their institutions, phone numbers and emails, things like that. You'll select a session chair. That's the person who checks their email the most frequently because they will be getting all of the emails saying like, congratulations, you've been accepted. Please fill out this paperwork. So make sure that you have someone who's going to be very responsible listed as the session chair. But all of the presenters will be listed there, and then you'll sign some agreements and things like that. And that's so once you see the template, you'll know everything else that'll be on that form. So no surprises.
The template will allow you, it has literally all of this, and we'll just copy and paste right into the form.
Yep. So then kind of thinking about what the conference committee is looking for when we're looking over all these proposals, again, that connection to the theme, we want something that's relevant and current, something that feels like it belongs at this year's conference, not at any year's conference. We want it specific to 2024. We love those collaborations. We love seeing that diversity of presenter. Something that's new, something that's different, something that you're excited about. Maybe you've refreshed something that we've been doing for years, but you found a new way to do it. Exciting work that's happening in the field, exciting things you're doing, research, evaluation results. And then we also really want to know when we're kind of going through all these proposals, we want to know like what will the audience take away from this? So we're putting on this conference, we're bringing together a group of people who all have shared interests. We want to make sure that they're coming away having learned something valuable for their work. And so in your proposal, we want to be able to know what that is that they're taking away. So it's again going back to having those goals really, really clear in your own head.
I wanted to add in when on the conference committee, we have actually rejected sessions in the past because they had zero connection to the theme or almost were antithetical to the theme. But that is rare, I will say. The themes are always chosen, and many conferences do this. They make a theme that is extremely broad so that many topics will fit under it.
Yeah, but you do want to keep it in mind. Absolutely, you want to keep it in mind. And I think, the way we came up with the theme was thinking about our own practice and our own work. So when you're thinking about having something that's relevant and current, the theme is a good way to kind of make sure you're staying on track with that because the theme was based around conversations we're already having at this moment in museum education. So then what to expect once you're selected. You'll get an email probably from Emily, our vice president. You may be asked to make some changes. So, it could be we get in, we're like, this is great, but we don't actually think it'll fit into an hour. So how would you feel about cutting this out? Or you might be asked some follow-up questions if we're a little bit unclear on one of the points you're making. you might be asked to follow up, and then we'll say like, okay, great, we'll bring this to the rest of the committee and get back to you. Occasionally we do have two proposals that seem really, really similar, or that seem like they're not quite full enough for the hour and would go well together. And then you might be asked to actually combine with another presenter. You can always say no to these things, and then the committee will decide whether or not they want to proceed as is, or just say, well, then you can't present. You always run that risk. I would say yes, because it's fun to collaborate with new people. And then you'll be asked to fill out some agreements, and please respond promptly to those, because it really helps the committee to move forward. It helps us get our program out faster. You know, we can't put out the program until those agreements are filled out. And so we want to be able to share all of these exciting ideas with the people coming to the conference, and we can't do that until the paperwork is in. So, you know, as soon as you get those emails, try and look through it as fast as possible, so that everyone can kind of be prepared with plenty of time before the conference. You can start preparing, we can start preparing it. It helps everyone out. Things to keep in mind: if you're doing a session, you will be supplied with a projector, a room, and with a projector and a whiteboard in it. But basically, we can't rely on having anything else. So make sure you bring everything else with you. If you're doing a poster, you'll be in a room with other presenters, and you'll be given a table. If you tell us that you're going to be putting something on the wall, we'll make sure you're stationed near somewhere where you can kind of prop that up. But you will have to bring your own copies. We highly recommend bringing your own computer and power cord and adapters and all of those things. We will hold the conference at Teachers College, and they always say that, you know, we will have those things, but then you get into a room and suddenly it's not there. So you just want to be prepared for all eventualities. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're stressed out because the tech didn't work. That just never feels good. So come prepared. And then any other materials you need. If you're doing some sort of craft project, bring whatever supplies that requires. If you're doing something where you're, you know, writing on Post-its or, you know, big pieces of paper, bring all of that. And then, you know, so in your writing of your proposal, also keep those things in mind, about what kinds of supplies you would need.
Roberto has a recommendation about if selected. Do you want to wait till the end, or if you want to come on the
Oh
mic,
yeah,
you
feel
could
free.
say it now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, something I wish I did last year, because I didn't get to go around and ask everybody where they were from, like which institution they were representing, or if there's their first conference. I recommend, as a presenter, uh making your own attendance sheet. Because there are some people who definitely, like, later on I saw them, I'm like, they look familiar, and it's always in my head, I'm like, did I see them at my session? I should have
Yeah.
had an attendance sheet. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that was helpful.
That's a great way. And also, if you're thinking about, you know, saving paper, you can always send out things later on instead of bringing printouts with you.
Yep.
And, you know, we can't, the conference can't provide those, but you absolutely can do it for yourself.
And there's things like Padlets and Mentimeters and things. You can have people join through a QR code through their phone as well. And yeah, so now we're going to switch gears and talk about what it's like to be at the conference. First, a little bit of prep beforehand, but this is for mainly for the NYCMER conference, which will be held at Teachers College on Monday, May 13th this year. Kind of between, I believe, AAM is the week before, so we are not conflicting specifically with them. There might be something right the weekend after too. Sometimes there is. It's also graduation season at Columbia, so you might see a lot of graduates around. But yes, so thinking about how to prepare for that day, not just your session, but that day when you're planning to attend, make sure you register. You know, that seems obvious, but register. Make sure you have confirmation. You can register the day of at the conference. It just takes longer, and then you're not getting to breakfast, and you're not getting to talk to people, and you're holding up the line. So try to register beforehand if you can.
You also get discounts.
You get
Right.
discounts. There
If you're
are
a
early,
member, you get discounts.
and sometimes there are early bird discounts. I don't know if that's built in this year or not. Um, and in fact, someone won a free conference also at the NYCMER party. So keep an eye on chances to do something like that with. Reach out to your networks. Who do you know that's going to be coming? Can you go with them? Can you encourage others, maybe in your department, to attend with you, or friends in your program? Um, think about your day. You'll have a schedule beforehand, maybe not like weeks beforehand, but you'll have a schedule. Think about timing and things to do and the sessions you want to attend. Stock up on business cards. That's always really good for handing out and quickly when you're meeting people. If you don't have any, maybe make some. And think about your goals for attending. Are you there because you're looking for a job? Are you there because you are trying to meet others doing similar work? Are you there to get inspiration for a program? Are you there to learn about new thoughts in the field, or trends in the field? That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, let's keep going. And for the day of, the night before in some of this, get a good night's sleep. That seems also kind of obvious, but it is a long day. There's a lot of walking. It starts early, it goes a little late. Um, Pack with you, make sure you have water, and some snacks maybe. Notebook or something for taking notes in, a pen, and your business cards. I can't stress enough wearing comfy shoes, because it's a lot of standing and walking and quick moving.
Oh, sorry.
Um, uh, oop, Aim
Okay.
to arrive a few minutes early so that you're not stuck on a long line. Know that you're going to be meeting a lot of new people. So what do you want them to know about you? Do you have a little elevator speech all ready to go? Are you looking for anyone in particular that you can keep an eye out for, or ask friends? Oh, Roberto just added in the chat also. Yeah, maybe you don't have a personal business card, but your program or your department has one, so that people can get in touch. Or maybe it's not a card, but like a little program flyer or something that you can hand out as well. And just a note that you don't need to do everything. In fact, you won't be able to do everything. Expect that you'll be tired. Try not to wear yourself out, and try to enjoy yourself as well. I maybe should have put that in there. If you're presenting, make sure you practice ahead of time your session, or your poster speech. You know where things are. You know that you've packed up. So make a list of what you need to bring, and get to your session early, so that you can do your setup and tech check. Just a little from my own session last year. We actually had to call the computer techs that work at Columbia, and it took them several minutes to get our projector working. And that was not our fault. Something on their end was disconnected over lunchtime, annoyingly, and they had to actually open up the back of the whole system and reconnect something. But in the meantime, my session had started, so we had to talk through it and walk around. I think someone gave a QR code so people could follow the slideshow on their phones. So be adaptable, be ready for things to go wrong, and get there early so that you can minimize that. And remember that you've got this. You have something to share. You have information that people want. Be confident in yourself, and enjoy it, and go through it. All right, so a little more of a visual travel through. It is going to be at Teachers College. I think most of these, if not all of these photos, are from conferences. We've been holding it there for several years, except when we had to switch to online during the pandemic. That is the entrance on the previous slide on 120th Street. We may use the entrance on Broadway. That depends on what they tell us. So it just depends on which entrance is open. But once you enter, there'll be a registration table and a way to check in. We're not going to be handing out these big giant kind of conference books anymore. The schedule will be mostly online, but there should be some sort of little summary sheet to take around with you, and name tags, so you can identify yourself and make sure that others know who you are when you're talking to them. Good idea to put your institution on there as well, or you can put other, like, give me a job. Slightly on my mind recently, sorry. Use the time there that you have between sessions and during breakfast and during lunch to really mix and mingle and network and get to know other people. If someone's been asking questions during a session you're in and you really think they have something to say, try to approach them or try to, remember their face and look for them later. It's not an overwhelming number of people. I've been to conferences that have 1,500 people. That's not us. NYCMER has 150, give or take, people joining, so you'll get to see everybody several times.
Yeah, and
And so,
I always like to remind myself, like, we're all there for the same reason. So, going up to someone you don't know might feel uncomfortable, but they're wanting to do the same thing, and they, just everyone needs that introduction. So be bold and just, go meet.
yep. Usually what happens first, again, I'm not on the committee and Emily's in charge, but usually the way we've been running it is there's a keynote presentation. She just confirmed, I can't announce yet who it is, but she just confirmed someone exciting. And yeah, so keep an eye out for that. The announcement will be made relatively soon. After that, and the keynote session also includes kind of some speeches from the president and acknowledgement of the board and the incoming board that will have been voted in, and the conference committee, and some other kind of businessy stuff that will happen before the keynote as well. Then the breakout sessions will start, and there usually are 3 during the day, maybe 1 or 2 before lunch, and then the other 1 or 2 after lunch. And these will be hour-long sessions where you're really locked into that topic for that hour. And as we discussed earlier, someone will be presenting, or a small panel will be presenting. Poster sessions, there's the costumed interpreters I was talking about earlier. Poster session will happen during the day. It'll be all in one room so you can kind of cycle through the different stations. And again, kind of a time to mix and mingle and do some networking. And we really want you, next slide, please, to engage during, oops, sorry, lunch. Lunch will, no, keep going. Lunch will not be provided by us. There will be a small breakfast provided, but lunch is really a chance to kind of go out with your colleagues. It's up near Columbia, it's at Columbia University, so there's tons of food options around. You can, of course, bring your own lunch as well, if you'd like. And we want you to engage. This is what I was starting to say. We want you to engage with folks during the day and in your sessions. It's not only there as a presenter for you to inform others, but you're there to learn as well. And you're there not just to network, but really to kind of get to know what is going on in the field and to query the people who are presenting. You can engage also with social media. It's kind of our most active social media day during the entire year. So please, how do you say it now? It's not tweet out anymore, it's X out, but that doesn't sound right. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those. We're on all of them, and would enjoy seeing your comments. Okay. And then lastly, the after party. This is kind of the really fun part, and it'll probably be a few blocks away. I don't think that's confirmed yet as well, but we usually have some like hors d'oeuvres and light food available, and maybe 1 or 2 drinks on the house for you as well. That are covered by they're covered by the cost of your conference ticket. But yeah, so that is a lot of fun, and that's really a chance to kind of, talk to the people maybe that were in your session, talk to the people as a presenter or as an attendee who were in sessions that you were in, and kind of extend those conversations, but also to get to know someone about, what work they do, or make some other personal connections as well. And it's really fun, but we do want your feedback. So there will be a survey for you to fill out as well. Exactly when and where that will be, whether it's after or maybe during the after party, remains to be determined. But that feedback is very important for the next year's conference committee to know what went right, what went wrong, what sorts of things you want to see at future conferences, and even what topics you want to see. So, and even favorite sessions, because some of these sessions turn into some of our monthly programs as well. So please do fill out the survey when you get a chance.